Hello and welcome to Art with Mr. P. This week we're drawing again. I would like to start this lesson though by looking at a very famous picture. So if you can search online, look for Gustav Klimt's The Tree of Life. Now why should we look at the work of famous artists? Well, I can think of three main reasons. First of all, it makes us feel good. It's a little bit like reading a story. In actual fact, looking at a picture is reading a story, but not with letters and words, but with lines and shapes and colours. Secondly, looking at famous art helps us to get better at reading pictures. And thirdly, and most importantly, it's just fun. Now, it's time for us to get creative. We're going to start by looking at Gustav Klimt's The Tree of Life. You look at that, have a look at the shapes, look at the lines, look at the colours. What do you think is the story in Klimt's Tree of Life picture? Anyway, it's time for us to be creative. Let's have some fun. Right, Gustav Klimt, Tree of Life, painted in 1905. Very interesting artist. Very revolutionary for the time. Have a look at the Tree of Life. So the first thing that's obvious is it's not a realistic picture of a tree. It's not a real tree. It's a tree that lives in stories and our imagination. Now, there's a whole thing about Tree of Life, and it features a lot in other kinds of stories. In Gustav Klimt's picture, there's a couple having a little kiss, but we'll ignore them. We'll have a look at the tree. Now, the tree is made up of the trunk with some patterns on it, and there are some different bits, whatever they might be, hanging from the branches. What is of particular interest to us are the shapes of the branches. Can you see how the branches all become spiral shapes? Well, spirals are symbols, and by that I mean they have another meaning here, and they suggest the path of life, yeah? So about choices we make, that it's rarely straight, life is rarely straightforward, yeah? And it's quite often a spiral shape. So spirals are very important. There's another famous artist who was very much into spirals, and that was Hundertwasser. Anyway, looking back at the Klimt tree, what we've got is, now this tree in reality is actually golden. But we've got the ground, which is very important because we all live on the ground and that's our home. There is a little bit of symbolic meaning here, that we live on the horizon, on the ground, this line. Underneath is hell and above is heaven. So if we can stretch up into the trees and up into the sky, and in fact what we're doing is stretching up into heaven. Now the branches are spirals, and spirals are quite tricky. Leave yourself enough space. You might want to do a few practices. As the branch comes towards the trunk, it gets a little bit thicker, and then it might go up and form another branch. So this tree, this Gustav Klimt tree, actually I think is a little bit like a kind of octopus. Okay, so very carefully I'm drawing the outline of the tree. Oh, gone wrong there. So if you go wrong like I've just done, Don't worry, if I can do it, you can do it too. Go around. You've got to stay focused. And go around. Keep going until you've got the whole tree. Now have a look back at the Klimt tree. You'll notice there are bits on it that look a little bit like, well, I'm assuming they're knots, yeah, so I'm going to get a standard pencil and fill that in. Something like that. There are triangle shapes. In actual fact, there are quite a few triangle shapes, aren't there? I think I'm going to put some of these on here. So remember what we're doing here. There's this kind of story that Klimt told in his pictures. And what we're doing is we're starting off with his story and we're retelling his story, but using our own lines and shapes and colours and textures. So what I'd like you to do is, first of all, to draw the whole tree. So you've got all the branches on there. Then fill in the shapes with the kinds of shapes and colours and lines that Klimt used. Don't forget the ground. The ground's very important. Yeah, it's where the tree emerges into the sky. Yeah. The tree's spirals stretch up towards the sky. Remember, you're not copying Klimt's. It's just a starting point for you to retell the story that's behind the Klimt. Yeah. This is your story, inspired by Gustav Klimt. Keep going till you've filled it all up. Put in the rest of the tree, wherever it might go. You see how I'm filling in the tree. You, of course, will have done both halves of the tree. This is just my demonstration so that you can get the idea of what you need to do. Okay, so keep looking at your drawing. Keep looking at the Gustav Klimt original. And I look forward to seeing the results on Teams or when I see you next. Good luck. So, we've looked at Klimt's Tree of Life, which he painted in 1905, so well over 100 years old. It's difficult to see online. Metal colours don't come out very well on computers. But did you notice the kinds of shapes and lines and colours that he used? Next week, we'll be looking at painting. So I hope that I'll see you then.